Hey guys, we are going to talk separating tomato seedlings today, but I wanted to stop in real quick as editing Caitlyn to let you guys know that Botanical Interests has one of those 50% off sales I was talking about in some of my other videos. Botanical Interests is a seed company that has been around for a little while, and I really like the product that they put out and the amount of effort that they put into their presentation and their design and good customer service. And they were recently bought by a YouTube channel based business actually called Epic Gardening. It was kind of crazy to see. They've really grown and grown and grown, and they put out a lot of really useful content, and I'm hoping that they continue to run Botanical Interests with all of the integrity that it has always had. I'm sure that they're gonna do a great job. I'm probably not going to buy anything, she says, mostly committed. I did buy quite a bit last fall at their sales, so I think I'm pretty well set, but it's always worth looking just in case. It's definitely worth heading over there to take a look because you can really make your dollars stretch a lot further and be able to try a lot more new things when you can catch them on sale. So let's head over and take a look real quick. So this is botanicalinterests.com. This is one of the websites that I mentioned in my videos about where I like to get my seeds. This place has all kinds of stuff. They have a huge variety in their inventory. You can scroll through. They've got a very nicely set up website. Everything is divided out in a way that is easy to find, but let's see. They sell birdies, beds is a big thing. I think I saw it up here just a second ago. Yes. So their seed sale, 50% off online for select varieties. So this is not for everything. I'm sure that they use these sales as a way to go ahead and work out inventory that is now becoming aged in terms of sales. And the seasons that you have to move in when you're merchandising anything, not just seeds. We did a lot of that kind of stuff when I worked in apparel as well, clothing. Anything that has any seasonality, you have to really be proactive about moving stuff, and these all are packed for a certain season. It does not mean that they will not be, some of them, good for many years to come. Some seeds age better than others. I've heard that onion seeds don't age as well, so I don't know that I would want to buy onion seeds more than one season ahead, but for most things, you can go ahead and buy, and they will be good for at least 2 to 5 years, depending on what it is. And in many cases, people plant seeds that are significantly older than that, and it works just fine. So we'll hit that shop now button and take a look. Let's see what they got here. Adzuki beans. I'm not sure what that is. It sounds like an Asian red bean. Tiger stripe cherry tomatoes. I've heard good things about these atomic red carrots. I've never tried them before. Let's see. Ooh, Diablo Cosmos. Those are really pretty. Oh, sunflowers. I want sunflowers. I could easily go through here and ooh and ah all day long. Hungarian blue bread seed poppy. I've never grown poppies myself. It's on my list of things that I want to try, probably at a later date when I have my own ground to plant in. So we'll just do a quick scroll through here. If you like wheatgrass, they've got that. I've heard a lot of people use that lettuce leaf basil as like a sandwich wrap. I love basil, but I don't know if I could do that. I guess it would depend on how strong the basil taste is. Am I the only one that scrolls through pretty seeds like these, and it actually starts to make me hungry because this stuff looks so good? Wheat is a good thing to be growing if you are trying to detoxify soil that has potentially been compromised. Like if you got some of the compost that I've heard about over the last couple years that wound up having certain broadleaf herbicides in it. It's one of the ways that people are trying to cleanse that soil so that they can grow things in it healthily again is to plant wheat, sunflowers, mushrooms, things like that that will pull toxins out. Nope, looks like that's mostly what they have on here now, but I mean, it could change. They could easily add things to it, take things away, so go away. Check back periodically and they will have different items potentially on sale. It's worth a look. Those sunflowers though, I might have to buy some sunflowers. Self-control, Caitlyn. Self-control. Hey guys, editing Caitlyn again. I told you about the botanical interest sale that started, it was either last night or this morning. And then I sat down at my computer and saw that Greenstock also has one of their biggest sales of the year, I think, going, their Mother's Day stuff. So I don't have a Greenstock yet, but they look amazing and it is definitely on my list as soon as my budget will allow for that purchase. I think especially in a situation like mine where I'm growing with very, very limited space in a townhome with no real yard. I have a small patio space out back and I have the itty bitty little bit of space right around my front door. Unfortunately, the itty bitty little space around the front door is the only place that gets really good light. I can grow a lot out on my back patio, but it does grow much slower because of less light. That being said, things like lettuce and strawberries and kale and herbs, a lot of the things that do really well in those Greenstock planters would do just fine on my back patio. So it's definitely on my list of things I absolutely intend to purchase. I can't do it just yet, but it's coming. And if you're gardening in a tight space, swing over to Greenstock's website and take a look. Sign up for their emails. They do a pretty good job sending out notifications when they're doing these sales, and they don't send out a lot of extra crap. Nobody likes extra spam. There's way too much of it these days, but Greenstock does not do that. They are a really neat company. They are a small family-owned operation that actually, I believe, is based out of Nashville, Tennessee, right here close to where I'm at. So give them a look-see if you're looking for something like that. Hey guys, so while I'm working on this stuff, I wanted to quickly just hang out with you for a minute while I am separating some tomato seedlings, because I know that that is something that especially new gardeners are probably definitely going to run into. It's fairly simple to do. I have lots of tomatoes started here. I say lots. There's people that start a lot more than this, but for my little garden, this is lots. So essentially, I'm running behind on everything, and I know that I am not the only one. I've been seeing posts on Facebook by different people saying, "I'm so overwhelmed, please tell me I'm not alone, I'm so far behind." You're not alone. I am also very far behind for all kinds of different reasons. I used to be really good with my ums back when I did public speaking in high school. I seem to have found all of them again since then. Bear with me, I take out what I can in editing, but I will try to get better about that. So ideally you want to get to them before they are this big. This is a sweetie pole cherry. I went ahead and I started earlier than all the other tomatoes because I knew this would be the first one we'd probably be eating anyways. So I wanted them to be as mature as possible when I put them in the ground. And I can afford to do that with a handful of plants. I cannot afford the space to do that with all of the plants or the potting soil, because you'd have to be potting them up to bigger and bigger cups and pots before you can put them outside, because you're not supposed to put tomatoes outside until it is consistently above 50 degrees at night. Otherwise, they get cold shock to a level that they really don't deal well with, and they can stunt and just be really generally unhappy. And it doesn't mean they won't come back if you plant them out too early. They may very well adapt. Tomatoes are one of the most adaptable plants in the garden, in my opinion, and they can come back from a lot, but it does mean that there will be a delay in when you start seeing quality fruit production, because the plant's going to have to take some time to stop and repair itself and deal with shock. So you don't want to do that if you don't have to. You lose time. These ones, you can see they're a little bit too young yet. You can pot them up and I say pot them up. You can separate them into their own cups, would be the correct way to say that. It's not really potting them up. When they are this little, there's no reason you can't. Most people wait until they have their first set of true leaves, because then they have a little bit more of a root base formed that they can then take with them as long as you handle them carefully. I'm probably going to go ahead and separate one of these cups with you guys so that you can see how to go ahead and do it when they're that little, if that's what you want to do, because it is certainly an option. But first, we're going to tackle these poor guys because they look awfully good considering how long I left them in this poor cup together. If you do get to where you don't have time to separate them when they really need to, you can leave them go longer like this. Just keep a really close eye on them and water them constantly, because there is 5 plants in this cup, which means any water that goes in this little cup, they're gonna suck it up and it's gonna be gone very quickly because it's being divided 5 ways. Think of it if you had 5 thirsty friends in a room and you give them 1 cup of water and everybody just gets a couple sips. That's what's happening here. So these, you can see, these are their cotyledons, I think is how you say it. They're their first leaves when they come out of their little seeds. And then their first true leaves, let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, we have almost 4 sets of leaves on these now, so I really did let them go longer than I intended to. So let's go ahead, I'm gonna bring you guys in closer so you can see what I'm doing. And we're gonna give these guys their own rooms because they're officially teenagers now. All right, so the first thing we need are cups. And I like to use these transparent plastic cups. You can see they've all been used before for other things, and we'll cross those out. In fact, I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. How many do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's good to have a rag handy so you can wipe it off real quick. Don't ever tell yourself, hey, I'll remember what I put in this cup. I tell myself that, it's the biggest lie, and I believe it every time, and I'm always wrong. So pole cherry is enough to tell me what I have in here. I'm gonna write it up here at the top too, where it'll be above the dirt. You can use white labels, like you can see I put white labels on here. The problem is water happens with plants all the time, and it may or it may not spill all over the outside depending on what's going on. So it's not as reliable if you put it on paper that can be destroyed. So with these see-through cups, I try to get it close to the top. You can also get plastic markers to put in there and write on them. That's honestly what I would prefer to do. I just haven't ordered any. So today we're working with what we got. So I am gonna go ahead and put a little bit of soil in each one of these cups. Alright, so I put some in my cups and I put some in my tray, and then I can just use it as needed. It's one reason working in these dollar store food storage trays is really helpful. And if you can find one that's even a size bigger than this, so much the better. You can order big plastic trays, or I've also got these that I work on a lot. This is just a plastic cafeteria tray, and I just ordered like a 5-pack. Honestly, I could have used another 5-pack. And I've got a fairly small operation here, so if you're wanting to order those, it just makes moving all your cups around when needed a lot easier, and as you water on your shelving, you don't have to worry about water dripping out all over the place and dripping through the shelving and onto your lights. Potential electrocution is not part of the plan. Oh, come on, there we go. So actually that's pretty good. I was expecting these to be a lot more root bound considering the size that they are. So I'm just gonna gently massage the bottom, run my fingertips through it, tease the roots apart where you can. When they're packed like this and they are this old, you are gonna rip some roots. There's no way to avoid it, but they will recover. So here's one. These, I've never grown this particular variety before, and they smell different. They almost have a little bit of a cucumber smell to them, which is interesting. Now I've got it really loose, so I can just kind of tug carefully and the roots just come apart from each other. We don't want to tear where we don't have to. So they all came apart with a decent amount of roots. I'm not worried. They'll be fine. So I'm going to go ahead and dump some of the soil out of here actually, because you want to bury them deeply. Anytime you're repotting, you can go ahead and take these cotyledons off. Just drop them in the cup, they'll disintegrate. Anytime you are replanting a tomato, whether it's into a cup like this or into the ground or into a planter on your patio, you want to dig it deep and plant it deep because it will put more roots out along the stem and just be a more stable, healthier plant overall. All right, so here's our first one. And you do want to push your soil down a little bit, but don't push it down and pack it hard. You don't want to squish the roots. You do want the soil to still be a little bit soft and fluffy so that the roots, the new roots that are forming, can easily work their way through it. But if you don't push it down a little bit, then what you're going to have happen is when you water, the soil is going to eventually settle down after the first couple waterings, and you're going to wind up with a cup that when you planted it, the soil was up to here, now it's like down to here. Going to be so much happier now. These aren't very big cups. They will grow out of these fairly quickly, but I expect by then I will be able to put them outside. I'm going to put these in my, at least 2 of them, if not 3, in my planter out back. I'm going to plant them in a triangle around a traditional tomato cage support, because this is a pole cherry, meaning it's an indeterminate variety of a cherry tomato. It does need support, and I will just fasten the vines to the support and run them around in a circle, kind of a spiral helix shape. And then I have a big beautiful tower of cherry tomatoes. I wish I had more places at my house I could grow tomatoes, but I have very, very little in the way of places I can put them, even in a container where they get enough light, just because of the direction that the building my townhome is a part of faces in terms of the way the sun moves across the sky. My back patio works great for some things, and there's a little sliver of it that I can put those tomatoes and things in because it gets enough light, but even that is not perfectly ideal. Things that need partial light do better back there. And I can do full sun at my front door, but I have very, very limited space up there. All right, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 cherry tomatoes all potted up. All right, so same as before, we're gonna mark our cups because we will not remember, and tomatoes, different tomato plants all look a little bit different, different varieties, but some of them look very, very similar. So you will not probably, even if you are a tomato fiend like me, be able to tell them apart. I'm just gonna write ox because I'll know what that means. That's enough for my memory to grab onto. Ox heart is a, if I remember correctly, a fist-sized Hungarian tomato that's good for all kinds of things. Ooh, that has a big crack down it. It'll work for now. Just means this is probably the last season for this particular cup. These plastic cups will last for several years, depending on how hard on them you are. A lot of people think that you shouldn't bother starting squashes in your seed starting operation. You should just direct sow them, and in some places that may very well be true. I can certainly understand the thought process there. It makes sense. However, I have found in my area that I am less likely to lose young plants to pests, and I mean bugs as well as things like bunnies and things like that, if they are a larger established plant when I put them in the ground. So you're just gonna, just like with the bigger plants, you're gonna just gently squeeze around your cup or your pot. And then with these, because they're so little, you do want to be very gentle. You can afford to be a little less careful with these older plants. They're a lot easier to handle without damaging them. So I'm actually going to slip my fingers right between some of them here so that I can tip the dirt out of the cup. There's not going to be a lot of roots to hold this together. Just very careful because they're babies. Just kind of falls apart because there's no roots to hold it together, and as it comes apart you can just carefully lay them down in your whatever your container is you're working in. Just be careful not to let them get bent too badly or lost in your pile of dirt here. So I know how many I had, so I've got 1, 2. You don't want to lift that with a big clump of dirt on it because it's still so delicate. 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. All right, right, so you can see this guy's still wearing his little seed hat, but that is all they have at this point in their process for roots. So they are pretty little and pretty delicate, which is one reason a lot of people, myself included, typically wait until a little bit longer. But you can absolutely, if you have all your stuff out and you just want to get it all done, you can absolutely go ahead and put them up in their little cups separately. And then your work is done for a little while. They'll be good for either till you get them in the ground, as long as that's not too long of a wait, or they'll have quite a while because it's the only plant in the cup using nutrients in your potting soil and using water. So you just poke your finger in, make a hole, and sit them down in there. Just carefully fill in around the sides. They don't have to be perfectly straight. I try to get them as straight as I can, and then they will straighten out on their own from there because they're going to reach towards wherever the light is and go in that direction. Okay. And again, you're going to push down just enough that your dirt's not going to totally collapse on you when you water. And there we have our first little oxheart tomato plant in his own room. He gets his own room a lot earlier than those poor cherry tomatoes did. I'm even gonna put them next to each other. Hopefully they don't talk about me behind my back. All right, so I have 6 left, and you can see they're just little. I had another quick thing I wanted to point out. This is something that a lot of people think it's obvious, but I hate when I'm trying to learn something and people skip over little details that for them are obvious because maybe they've already done this and screwed it up, and so to them it's obvious, but to me it may not be. So when you're watering anything that you've just potted up or separated like this, you don't have to be super careful with these bigger ones. You can just come in here like that. They're not delicate, they're not fussy in most cases. But when you're dealing with something this small and this delicate, and it may not be tomatoes, it may be a new pepper, or it may be some small leafy things like lettuce, or like the petunias. If you start petunias from seed, they're very fragile. So you want to just very carefully water around them like this. And they will send, the water will move through the roots and through the soil, so the plant will get the water that you're trying to give it just fine. And in some cases, even when you're watering things in the ground, they tell you water around the plant, not directly on it, because it encourages the roots under the ground to grow outward, looking for the water, because it can just feel maybe the water at the tip of its roots, and so it will reach for it, and then you wind up with a much more stable root base. So just something to think about. So that's really all there is to it. Tomatoes are very easy to deal with. They are tasty, they grow well, they grow fast. They are less demanding than a lot of other things, so they're definitely something that you should consider if you are a beginner gardener. And if you're not a beginner gardener, maybe you're moving into intermediate or higher. I consider myself in the beginner section of intermediate. All of these terms are kind of relative, I think. It's based on opinion. in terms of experience and the amount of success you have, or what you feel success looks like. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I think I have 8 varieties of tomato in my garden this year, which I think is 2 more than I had last year. I can't remember for sure. That's one of the reasons I've started doing these videos. If nothing else, even if nobody else watches this and doesn't want to hang out with me while I pot up tomatoes, at least I will have a record of what it is that I did, and I can go back next year and look. So do you like cherry tomatoes? Are you a big cherry tomato eater? Or do you prefer the big old Brandywine or the big old slicing tomatoes? My Brandywines. They're gonna be up potted probably, I keep saying up potted, they're gonna be separated in probably a week-ish. I expect they'll start having their first true leaves. So what is your favorite kind of cherry tomato? Share below, let us know. I've tried a couple different kinds. I'm excited for this one. I really want to try the super sweet 100s at some point, but this sweetie cherry tomato was what Botanical Interest had in stock when I did my buying at their fall sale last year, and it looked like a really good option. So we're gonna try that this year. One of the few that I buy hybrid at the nursery, I don't know if I will this year because I already have 8 different kinds, but I usually buy a Husky Cherry Red just because it's very reliable, it's very adaptable. It actually did better than any other tomato out here on my patio that doesn't get the strongest light. So it performed very well, all things considered. It didn't perform as well there as it does in the ground out somewhere where it has more light, but it did all right for the limited resources that it had. So, and I think, like I said in my Tomatoes for Beginners video, that Brandywine I showed you is my favorite big slicer tomato, and it did all right in my patio. It produced a handful of tomatoes growing in a 5-gallon bucket, but again, I think it would have done better out. I know it would do better. It does do better out in somewhere where it has more light and more space. So I think that's all I have for you on tomatoes today. Thanks very much for stopping by my little corner of YouTube. I appreciate the time that you took out of your day to spend with me, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks.